I want to talk to you about what are beliefs and how do they affect us. All right. And I'm not talking like religious specifically or political beliefs, but I mean, those are obviously some form or type. What I want to focus on is like our self beliefs. So the beliefs we have about ourselves and our place in the world, like not necessarily what the world's like, but our place. And usually our place, it's our perception, right? And so that's kind of how we view the world, but that's not always the case, right? It's just the case for us. All right. So the other day, I think it was Monday, I posted a short video about how I used to hate calling people all the time and how it would like create all of this anxiety in me, and I would like have to prep myself up for like sometimes like 2 weeks to like just call. And usually I'd get off the phone and I'd be like, okay, that's not that bad. And then the next time, though, it would be the same thing. And so this didn't even happen. Like, this was my whole life. I didn't even like work through this until like probably like maybe 2 years ago. So, hey, I'm in my 30s and I still hate calling people. If you feel that. So, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I had to really like, I was like, how I'm in my 30s, I still hate calling people. Like, this does not work for me anymore. So, what's the deal, Brittany? What's the deal? And so, usually, what happens is it comes down to the beliefs we have about ourselves in that situation. So, in this case, it's like, what do I believe about myself when I'm making phone calls? Now, let's backtrack a little bit because when we talk about beliefs, right, it's in my like definition, it's kind of like our perceived truths about ourselves and the world. Okay. And the reason I use perceived truths is because our beliefs are based off of our experiences, so i.e., memories, and our emotions, right? Because emotions and memories are connected. Okay. So, like a lot of times, the more emotional, the stronger the memory, right? Up until a point. It's almost like a bell curve. Okay. So, we have these past experiences, and what happens is our brains are like little file folders, right, with their memories. And we have, oh, I'll be right back. I hear my phone going off. Sorry. Those of you who are hanging out with me, I'm like, what's that sound? And of course, it's early, so I don't want it waking up my kids. Usually I have my phone on me too. All right, where was I? I'd like to say I'll edit that out later, but I probably won't. Okay, so basically what happens is our brains are little file folders, right? And when things happen to us that cause some emotional response, good or bad, it gets coordinated and filed into a memory. So my assumption is that something happened when I was a kid that kind of created this emotional response and memory about making phone calls. And so my brain said, ooh, that wasn't a good experience, right? Let's file that memory away into the not so great experience of making phone calls. And then, so then the next time you make a phone call, or in my case, I would make like a phone call, it's like good or bad experience, right? And if it was like that anxiousness, which of course, then it's like the next time you are a little more anxious, it's like, oh, yep, that's going to go in the anxious. We don't want to do that file. And then what happens is even the ones that weren't that bad kind of get filed, like they kind of get forgotten about, right? It's like when you don't notice a specific kind of car or specific color of car, and then you buy that car and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere, right? It's kind of like that same thing, but like reverse, right? Now we're focused on this emotion. We have our file for this. We have our storage area for this. So now our brains kind of automatically are like, that's what we're looking for. Okay. So that's kind of how beliefs, from my understanding, are how beliefs kind of get set up in our brains, right? We have a memory that causes, we have an experience that causes an emotional reaction, creates a memory, and gets filed away in our brain. And then we use that reference moving into the future. Okay. Our other actions, we use that as a reference. Okay. So when we think about how beliefs affect us, well, then every time I would go to make a phone call, my brain would go, oh, what are all of the experiences we have about this? Oh, here's all the ones we filed folded away. These aren't great. They don't feel good. And so where all those emotions are going to come up, right? You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. And, I'm not going to get into the way science of like, it was like a survival mechanism, right? But we don't need to get into all that today. That's a whole other video. And so how they affect us is a lot of times if we're not aware of these beliefs, right? Like I was just like, I don't like making phone calls. I don't know why, right? I don't know. I'll grow out of it, right? When I was like a teenager, I'm like, oh, it's just because I'm a teenager. I'll grow out of it, right? When I'm like 30, I'll be okay with making phone calls because I'll do it and it will be fine. And then I'm 30 in my 30s, and I was like, I still don't like making phone calls. And so what I realized is once I was like, this isn't working for me, like, what is going on? Sometimes we have to backtrack and be like, okay, what's happening, right? So this is like how they affect us because our beliefs then create our thought patterns, right? I don't like making phone calls. It's really stressful. This gives me anxiousness. I sound stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't hear the people. I don't want them to think I'm stupid. I don't like the sound of my voice, right? All of those things I just listed are beliefs that I have about myself and making phone calls. Had. Cancel, clear, had. Right? And so the way they affect us is then I have that thought pattern every time I make a phone call. And then every time I make a phone call, it gets filed into that same process of, yep, you sounded stupid. Yep, you couldn't hear the people. Yep, you didn't like the sound of your voice. Yep, right? And then it's a cycle. Okay. So that's what tends to happen. Now, when we can identify the belief of saying like, oh, I don't like making phone calls because I feel stupid, then we can start to unwind it and say, okay, what are the emotions and memories I have behind this? How can I clear that out? Right? That's where AFT comes in, or at least it was for me. AFT came in. I was like, I'm going to do an AFT, aroma freedom around this to dissolve some of those emotions and memories around that. Okay. And if you don't know what that is, like I did a reel about that last week and I have another one coming up tomorrow. So just like, follow me or something like that on YouTube or Facebook and you'll get the shorts there, the little micro contents I do. So clear that out, figure out what those beliefs are, clear those out and make new beliefs in order to move forward and not have the same thought patterns. Okay. And so I'm actually doing like a deeper dive into like, okay, Brittany, that's great. How do I identify those beliefs? What do I do once I know I have those? And I'm doing a free masterclass right now as this video is being recorded. It's on February 8th. It's all about kind of like setting the stage. So like setting the stage for our future, so to speak, and beliefs are a part of that, and breaking that down. So of course I always put the replay in the group. So if you're watching this as a recording, you can go in there, check it out. The link to the group is in the description of this video. And we're going to be talking about like, how do we identify those beliefs and clear them out and adjust and move forward. All right. So going back to my calling people, right? Identifying like, okay, I remember this distinct memory, or this is the memory that's surfacing for me. How did I feel? Clearing that out, acknowledging the beliefs that I have, clearing those out and creating a new belief system, mindset to move forward. And now, like, there are times where a little bit of like things trickle in of like, oh, I don't want to do this. But usually I like use self-awareness and mindfulness and like, no, I don't have that belief system anymore. And most of the time I'm like, let me just call. It'll be easier. Like I used to be let me just search it on the internet so I don't have to call people. Right. And now I'm like the opposite. I'm like, why? Why spend 15 minutes trying to hunt this stuff down when I'm going to have to call anyways? I'm just going to call. Right. So there we go. That's kind of like a little snippet into what our beliefs are and how they affect us. You guys have the best day. Let me know what you think.